According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in a 2015 study, 14.8% of Americans are in poverty. That is roughly 1 in 7 Americans may not have food to eat tonight. That number sickens me. That is your coworkers, your friends, your classmates that may not be able to eat. The saddest part about poverty is that it's self-perpetuating. It goes in this vicious cycle, which I'll elaborate on later, but it breaks my heart when I read these stories about people just falling. The problem with poverty is that there is no education to avoid it. In our schools, we have no way to avoid it. Because for the most part, we aren't required to take a financial education class, which should be essential. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. First, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what poverty is, especially in America. Next, I'll talk about how financial education fixes a bunch of that. And then I will also talk about why it isn't in place yet. So first off, I think it's good to start on the discussion about the fight against poverty by elaborating on what poverty is. There's two groups of poverty. There's original poverty and institutional poverty. Original poverty starts when somebody falls, like their budget fails and they just fall into poverty for whatever reason, whether it be a debt snowball or a thing called a life shock. A life shock is basically any phenomenon that happens to somebody in their life, such as an unexpected death, illness, incarceration, divorce, and they can sap a budget. They can absolutely destroy somebody's finances. And most people don't know how to prevent such a thing from destroying your budget. And then there's institutional poverty. Institutional poverty is different from original poverty in that institutional poverty is the perpetuation when original poverty is the creation. Institutional poverty most likely happens when people in poverty have children, and those children have children, and they remain in poverty. And this is an instance called a poverty trap. Poverty trap means that when somebody's born, they live in the same area roughly, because they can't afford to move elsewhere, and they get a poor quality education, which then feeds into poor job aspects, and then they have children of their own, and the cycle repeats. This cycle is breakable. As terrible as it is breakable. Just people don't know how. And that leads into my next point of financial education being essential for American education. In public education right now, there are no requirements that state that people must take a financial education course. But financial education has been proven in a 2016 study called Financial Education and Savings Outcomes that prove that people in low-income households save much better if they even take 1 month. 1 month, that would be 80 hours of 4 days a week, 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day. Just 1 month of education can change somebody's entire life. So why are we taking it in schools? I talked a little bit about poverty and I talked a little bit about financial education, but now we need to discuss why it's being suppressed, why we don't have this education in our school systems already. And I would like to recall just a little bit to Cameron's presentation, talking about creativity. And that people, and also talk about a little bit about theirs. And I can sum it up as this. People will graduate from high school knowing Catcher in the Rye by rote, verbatim, but will not know how to manage a budget. And that is so sad. It's a sad state of our education system where we just don't know how to survive in the world. Currently in my school, you have to take 1.5 years of physical education. One of those classes is yoga. I've taken it twice now. Our school district thinks that yoga is more important than our very survival. That's just frankly kind of pathetic. So, in review, we talked a little bit about poverty. We talked a little bit about poverty alleviation through financial education, and then we talked about why it is in our schools already. And also, now we need to talk about how we can fix this. This is a problem, but it is fixable. Regardless of who you are, whether you be a student, a parent, or You're here for whatever other reason. This is fixable. You can get involved in your schools, you can petition, and especially people that are currently students, you are incredibly effective in petitioning and, for example, walkouts. And with this, I conclude, and I say, a quote from an anonymous author, I no longer accept what I cannot change, but instead I decide to change what I cannot accept. Thank you.